First off, we have Travis Kelce screaming at his coach. Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce didn't mean anything by his shouting at head coach Andy Reid early in Sunday's Super Bowl victory over the San Francisco 49ers. It was all part of the star's competitive spirit, a source tells Page 6. Kelce was clearly irritated and frustrated after the Chiefs lost a fumble in the second quarter of their thrilling comeback over San Francisco. The 34-year-old star and boyfriend to Taylor Swift was seen on video yelling in Reid's face and even bumping the coach as he wanted back into the game following the turnover. Teammate Jerick McKinnon even had to hold Travis back. Viewers were quickly to pounce on Kelce's actions, but a source brushed aside any real animosity between the player and the coach. He's just a passionate player and everybody is on edge. It's the Super Bowl, but there was no malintent. Now let's talk about Nickelodeon covering the Super Bowl. Nickelodeon added its own spin on the sports event by showing celebrities as cartoon sea creatures. The Nickelodeon announcer introduced the celebs including LeBron James and Finn Diesel, Billie Eilish, and Herring Styles. In addition to the strange cartoon celebs, Sandy Cheeks from SpongeBob was the main commentator. Of course, why not? And they referred to Travis Kelce as Taylor Swift's boyfriend the entire night. Next up, we have the horrible Oreo commercial starring Kris Jenner. In her first Super Bowl commercial, the momager pays homage to some of the Kardashian-Jenner family's most iconic moments. The commercial is meant to be a flashback to 2007 and pay homage to the moments and cookies that have played a part in the family's fame over the last 17 years. How did we get here? Well, to answer that, I'd have to go back to the beginning, Jenner says while holding up an Oreo cookie. Jenner twists the top cookie from the rest of the Oreo and looks inside as if reading a fortune. With a giggle, she adds, "I better warn the kids." Although the commercial was received well by some, the majority of Reddit was not having it. One user writing, "I can't go anywhere online without seeing a Kardashian. And now Oreo? Come on." Another user writing, "Why are companies still endorsing Kris Jenner? Doesn't she have enough money?" Next, let's talk about the Jenna Ortega Doritos commercial. Haven't we as a culture moved past the older people look like they're doing crazy things cause stunt doubles trend? Well, that's kind of the only premise of the entire commercial. And come on Doritos, you got Jenna Ortega to be in this commercial just to have her wander around a grocery store looking for her grandmothers. The YouTube comments on the ad say it all. "It's like 2008 funny," one user says, another commenting, "What the F am I watching?" And they've officially ruined Doritos. Next up, we have Usher's halftime show. Viewers look forward to the halftime show each year, but this year's performance fell a bit flat. Usher's halftime performance during this year's Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers has come under fire from thousands across the globe. As the players took a well-deserved break in the Allegiant Stadium locker rooms, Usher took to the field to belt out a long list of his best-known hits. While the thousands in attendance were on their feet, it's safe to say the performance fell a bit flat, with several watching at home. Complaints flooded in from the very beginning of the performance, with many moaning that the sound quality was quote awful, and that Alicia Keys was singing off pitch, and that there was no wow moment from any of the performers. Taking issue with the sound quality, one ex-user fumed. "Usher is horrible in live settings," he says, "could barely hear him on top of that. Worst halftime show in a long time. Worst halftime show ever. Didn't even hear Usher sing properly. Really disappointed." A second complained, with a third echoing, "This is historically bad. Congrats." Every year the halftime show is worse and worse. Hashtag Super Bowl, this didn't break the internet, a fourth commenter hit out, while a fifth user bluntly put it, "The worst Super Bowl halftime show performance ever." Even those who enjoyed Usher's performance couldn't help but criticize the audio problems that plagued it, including one person who weighed in saying, "It was a great show, but the audio was just awful. It got a little better towards the end, but you could barely hear Usher at all." Now, let's discuss the horrible outfits that some celebs were wearing. From Usher to Blake Lively and Elon Musk, many were confused and unimpressed over these A-listers' clothing choices. Ahead of the big game, rumors swirled that Justin Bieber was going to make a surprise appearance during Usher's halftime show. However, when those predictions didn't pan out to be true, it left many to wonder, where in the world was JB? Well, the star reminded us that he was indeed there, but clearly had no intentions of going on that stage based on his outfit. The Peaches hitmaker was spotted wearing a loose-fitting brown-colored button-down that was totally open with his chest exposed. He topped it off with a black baseball cap tilted backwards, which added to the vacation mode vibe of it all. There's quiet luxury and then there's carelessness, and that's exactly what Elon Musk's outfit gave. The X and Tesla CEO showed up to the event in a tight-fitting t-shirt that made him look as if he rolled out of bed and just went to the game. Even though this wasn't a red carpet event, we still expected more from one of the wealthiest celebs in the world. Next, let's discuss the atrocity that is the ticket prices for the Super Bowl. It's reported that the average price of a ticket is $10,000 US, and that box suite that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's family sat in, a reported $2 million. Earlier last week, Travis Kelce joked about how much money he was spending for the Super Bowl. I'm not really doing much different other than just counting how much money I'm spending on this damn Super Bowl for family and friends to come, he told his brother in Thursday's episode of their hit podcast, New Heights. Just making sure I'm on top of those finances and losing all this money, the athlete, who is reportedly worth $30 million, quipped. The Super Bowl ads are also extremely expensive. The average cost for 30 seconds is $7 million US. For reference, in 2015, it was only $4 million. A reliable figure doesn't really exist for how much money the Super Bowl itself makes each year, though most estimates range from a minimum of $300 million to a maximum of $1.3 billion. Our last two worst moments are from other Super Bowl years, but are equally as horrific. Remember the Justin Timberlake halftime show debacle? Well, if you don't know the story, let me catch you up. Justin and Janet Jackson were performing in front of over 100 million fans watching worldwide, when at the end of the halftime show, he tore Janet Jackson's costume and bared her chest live on stage. It didn't seem like it was a mistake, and Janet was furious. But she says she later forgave him. Honestly, this whole thing was blown way out of proportion. Jackson opened up about the incident during part 2 of her Janet Jackson documentary. She continues by saying, "And of course, it should not have happened, but everyone's looking for someone to blame, and that has got to stop. Justin and I are very good friends, and we will always be very good friends." Lastly, we have the Maroon 5 Super Bowl halftime show. Beyond big-name performers like Rihanna and Cardi B, who publicly turned down the 2019 halftime slot to show solidarity with Colin Kaepernick, and 100,000 Maroon 5 fans who signed a petition urging them to drop out, the band weathered brutal headlines asking, "Can you name a member of Maroon 5 besides Adam Levine?" and "Will Maroon 5 give us the weakest ever Super Bowl halftime show?" and the Super Bowl's biggest question, why are Maroon 5 popular? The performance certainly did not do much to highlight Maroon 5's non-Adam Levine members, with the frontman's knuckle tattoos alone getting more screen time than the rest of his band. Levine, no stranger to the screen thanks to his voice coaching gig and his many random endorsements, did his very best to remain at the forefront of the performance at all times. The most gratuitous of his many camera mugging moments coming when he launched his shirt into the crowd to reveal his very sweaty, tattoo-covered torso during their groan-worthy set, Moves Like Jagger. Adam Levine has had his fair share of controversies, especially in 2022, when he was publicly outed for cheating on his wife. The former voice coach made headlines in September 2022 when a woman named Summer Stroh claimed she had a year-long affair with Levine. "At the time, I was young, I was naive, I was very easily manipulated," she alleged via a TikTok TikTok video. She added in the caption that she was, quote, embarrassed that I was involved with a man with this utter lack of remorse and respect. The University of Texas alum claimed that after she and Levine ended their affair, he reached out to her to ask if it was okay if he named his future baby boy after her. One day after a TikTok about this whole situation went viral, Levine, who was expecting baby number 3 with his wife at the time, released a statement denying that he ever cheated on his wife. I used poor judgment in speaking with anyone other than my wife in any kind of flirtatious manner. I did not have an affair. Nevertheless, I crossed the line during a regrettable period of my life. In certain instances, it became inappropriate, he said in September 2022. My wife and my family is all I care about in this world. To be this naive and stupid enough to risk the only thing that truly matters to me was the greatest mistake I could ever make. I will never make it again. Amid the drama, more women came forward claiming that they had exchanged flirty messages with Levine during his marriage to Victoria's Secret model. Next up, let's discuss some of the Super Bowl commercials this year. There's only one day per year where the commercials are actually anticipated, and this would be the Super Bowl. It has always cost companies a ton of money to have their brand advertised during the big game, and the expectation with the ads has always been that they are worth watching. That is certainly true of some more than others. Every year, fans will come away with some ads that crack them up or hit them in the feels. But there are just as many ads that leave fans disappointed they didn't use those 30 seconds for the bathroom break. Our first bad commercial is Temu. There's a lot going on in this commercial, let's just say. First of all, the jingle they have is not Burger King Whopper catchy, it's just plain annoying. On top of that, their slogan, quote, shopping like a billionaire, doesn't really make sense because it doesn't mean shopping for dresses that are $9.99. Another commercial that was just plain awkward is the Snapchat commercial. The commercial starts with bashing other social media platforms and then ends with a slogan that says, less social media, more Snapchat. Only one problem, Snapchat, you are also a social media platform. Next up, let's discuss an awkward singing moment. One of the commentators was caught singing along to Adele's Rolling in the Deep right before the commercial break, and it didn't sound too good. While he was trying to hit the high notes of Adele's smash hit, another commentator said, alright, let's take it to commercial break. Yikes. Now let's discuss the Super Bowl injuries, an athlete's worst nightmare. This year, 49ers linebacker Dre Greenlaw injured his Achilles tendon while jogging onto the field and got taken out of the game. As Greenlaw prepared to run back onto the field for another Niners defensive series, with 9 minutes 26 seconds left in the second quarter of Sunday's Super Bowl, he injured his left leg. Coach Kyle Shanahan confirmed after the game that Greenlaw tore his Achilles tendon. Super painful. Fellow San Francisco linebacker Fred Warner reacted in anger upon seeing Greenlaw get hurt. Defensive end Nick Bosa watched in stunned silence as Greenlaw hobbled the few feet to the sideline, where medical staff began treating him immediately. Moments later, a teary-eyed Greenlaw was taken to the locker room on a cart. It was hard. Sometimes when things like that happen, it could sway the momentum just because it's such an emotional feeling, Bosa said. Dre is a one-of-one human being. He was pushing through so much this year, and I think 99% of players wouldn't have been able to do what he did. He put his body on the line for us, and it sucks we couldn't get him a win. As often happens with Achilles injuries, Greenlaw's came without contact and at the most inopportune of times. The Niners had just punted the ball back to the Chiefs before Greenlaw and his defensive teammates were about to go back on the field. Greenlaw was able to stand up and limp to the sideline, but he and the Niners seemed to have a pretty good idea of what had just happened. The 49ers initially said Greenlaw was questionable to return, but he was soon ruled out. Now let's talk about Nickelodeon covering the Super Bowl. Nickelodeon added its own spin on the sports event by showing celebrities as cartoon sea creatures. The Nickelodeon announcer introduced the celebs including LeBron James and Finn Diesel, Billie Eilish, and Herring Styles. In addition to the strange cartoon celebrities, Sandy Cheeks from SpongeBob was the main commentator, and they referred to Travis Kelce all night as Taylor Swift's boyfriend. Next up, let's discuss the bizarre Robert F. Kennedy Jr. presidential campaign commercial. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. actually apologized to his family Sunday evening after a Super Bowl ad backing his presidential bid ran during the event. Why it matters. The ad was an extraordinarily expensive investment and generated online buzz for the long-shot presidential candidate who is seeking to boost his national name recognition. "I'm so sorry if the Super Bowl advertisement caused anyone in my family pain," Kennedy wrote on X Sunday evening. This commercial was seen as a parody of his uncle John Kennedy's presidential campaign commercial from the 60s. Robert Kennedy later said the ad, which remained pinned at the top of his X page Monday morning, was made without any involvement or approval from his campaign team. Now let's discuss the Andra Day performance. Most thought it was absolutely beautiful, but prominent supporters of Donald Trump were furious with the inclusion of the Black national anthem at the Super Bowl. The pre-game performances at this year's Super Bowl included a rendition of Lift Every Voice and Sing, performed by recording artist Andra Day. The hymn, adopted by the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, is often referred to as the Black national anthem. Former Arizona Senate candidate Carrie Lake responded to a picture showing her sitting down during a performance of the hymn. Lake said on X, formerly Twitter, on Sunday, "I'm still not standing for this divisive garbage. One nation, one anthem." The account End Wokeness added, "There is no such thing as a Black national anthem. If you have a problem with the American national anthem, feel free to leave." Before the game, Representative Matt Gaetz said on X that he would not watch the Super Bowl because quote, "they're desecrating America's national anthem by playing something called the Black national anthem. What is worse is that after Andra Day performed, one of the commentators announced that they were going to, quote, "celebrate America" after coming back from the commercial break. Yikes. Now our last 2 points involve other Super Bowl years but are just as awkward. Remember that iconic moment when Miami Dolphins coach Don Shula was carried up by his team after they won Super Bowl in 1973? Well, while the players hoisted up their coach, a fan came onto the field to try and shake his hand, only to yank his watch right off his wrist. Fortunately, Shula was able to go after the fan and retrieve his watch quickly. Lastly, we have the iconic Katy Perry Super Bowl moment. Katy Perry headlined the Super Bowl halftime show in 2015 on a fantastic beach party themed stage. But what most people seem to remember from it was how one of her shark-dressed dancers seemed to dance completely out of sync with the other backup dancer. To be fair, it can't be easy dancing around in that shark costume. Nevertheless, Left Shark has since become an internet phenomenon that did the unthinkable and stole Katy Perry's spotlight.
Starting off our list today at number 10, we have Rihanna. 2023 was the most watched Super Bowl broadcasted in the United States thanks to Rihanna. Like really, at the end of the day, Rihanna's concert was interrupted by a football game, which was weird. What was honestly a truly outstanding performance by a woman who is pregnant with her second child would soon be met with controversy as millions of viewers have dived into a debate to label her performance as one of the worst Super Bowl performances of our time because she didn't sing songs people wanted her to sing, she didn't do a big flashy show, and now people are even accusing the star of lip syncing. However, to shut all you haters down, Rihanna hasn't performed solo and live since 2016, and despite this, she didn't miss a beat as she cycled through some of her biggest hits. Not to mention when she announced she was pregnant while holding her belly during the show, she made a powerful statement for women all around the world, and it's impressive. Number 9, the Black Eyed Peas. Out of all the performances to happen at the Super Bowl, the Black Eyed Peas had to have one of the worst performances of all time. If you tuned to watch their performance back in 2011, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because there was nothing cool or magical about their set. The only thing that was actually really interesting about their performance was their light up robot suits, duh. The worst part about their performance though had to be their version of "I've Had the Time of My Life." Not only was their entire show uninspiring and boring, they sang so badly, lovelessly, and they secured themselves extra negative points when Fergie butchered Sweet Child of Mine with Slash. Not to mention, they sounded offbeat and they all looked like they really didn't want to be there. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Coming number 8, we have Phil Collins. For the Millennium Celebration in 2000, there was a really big Disney production, and it was pretty reminiscent of an amusement park mixed with an orchestra and a circus. But that's what happens when you book 5 big celebrities of different genres to perform the same halftime show. Admittedly, it was such a bizarre spectacle with Disney written all over it. Not only did the artist's performance come off as undeniably cheesy, it also wasn't executed well. Not to mention, with none of the songs really mashing well together, when Phil Collins came up to the stage to perform, he legit wore sweatpants and a hat, which kinda gave off the impression that he didn't want to be there and he knew mixing 5 artists together was such a bad idea that he just opted to not even try. Which is not the point of the Super Bowl, as if you get invited to perform, you need to make a big impression, and that's just not what we got with anybody's performance, especially Phil's love theme from Tarzan. Number 7, The Who. The Who took over the halftime show in February of 2010. The pioneers and all-time heroes of stadium rock at the time had been around for 46 years since the band was founded. Unfortunately, the spectators and listeners at the Super Bowl in Miami that year quickly realized that the rock veterans Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey, unlike Stones and Paul McCartney, had long since left the musical league. And because of this, the sound was lousy and the music and vocals were not at least very well synchronized. They just didn't understand the high visibility, high stakes, and nature of the gig, and they just kept fumbling a medley of classics. Not to mention those suspicious crowds singing along audio cues that sounded as believable as a Seinfeld laugh track. Number 6, New Kids on the Block. While boy bands were all the rage in the 1990s, that doesn't mean that they were exactly perfect to perform at a Super Bowl halftime show. When New Kids on the Block hit the Super Bowl stage in 1991, this is where people started to state that they could put on a better show than half of the people who were asked to perform at the halftime show. But don't blame New Kids on the Block, who didn't really get to sing any of their perkier tunes, as they got stuck doing the sappiest hit of their one hit called One for the Children, which got shifted into this Disney kiddie choir. The performance definitely didn't pay off at the time as well as they thought it would, because everything going on in the world at the time, no one really wanted to hear "It's a Small World After All." And it's not exactly what you would want to hear when you are right in the middle of a back and forth battle between the Bills and the Giants. Coming number 5, we have Stevie Wonder. In 1999, Stevie rolled out a few tried and true classics in Miami, and he graciously even tried to give local goddess Gloria Estefan a long-deserved do-over shot at a Super Bowl redemption. But he probably would have been better just taking the stage himself. For the finale, Stevie ended up donning a jacket with African down one sleeve and American down another sleeve, which was a strong statement, but then Gloria turned the beat around to give her Miami fans a salsa percussion, and it would prove that there was a reason why the Super Bowl never asked her to come back and redeem herself at a halftime show to begin with. Not to mention, there would then be a cameo from the then hot swing revivalist Big Bad Voodoo Daddy that would remind us all and future historians that the 90s was actually a really weird time to be alive. Coming at number 4 today, we have Gloria Estefan. In 1992, the Super Bowl definitely became a winter magic pageant, because this time it was in Minnesota. While the show was filled with giant snowmen and figure skaters from the Olympic team, it also featured Gloria Estefan, because obviously at the time when you thought of the Great White North, you would naturally think of Gloria and her sound machine. But as users clicked in to watch the show, they would only find themselves slowly turning away from the show, as it was a truly cringe-worthy show of people dancing while waving hockey sticks to Queen's "Don't Stop Me Now." All in all, it was just a really weird vibe for the Super Bowl in general, and it became one of those moments that made us all just want to erase the moment from our memories altogether. Plus, who mixes figure skating and football in the first place? place. Number 3, Shania Twain. Shania Twain's performance in the Super Bowl in 2003 with Sting, and no doubt, definitely didn't impress me much. And it became one of those moments we even forgot Shania Twain actually showed up for because her performance was just sad and she butchered it. You know, the star was bombing her chance to show the whole world that she was a legend in country music when the camera had to do a close-up of the guitar guy, not focus in on her while she was creating a mess of the show. Eventually, Sting and Gwen Stefani came along to rescue the show, and it took them a while to fix it, but Gwen was such a natural for the role that when she was able to win over the crowd, it would become strange that they never asked her to come back and do it again. However, it's a good thing they made Shania go first, because if she closed out the show, that probably would have been one of the worst halftime shows to ever hit the stage. Well, I mean, it kind of already was. Number 2, Katy Perry. We all expected a lot to come from Katy Perry's halftime show, but I'm pretty sure we can all agree that we didn't really know what we should expect to come from it. One thing is for certain, after it was all over, we all didn't really know how to comprehend what exactly all went down and what we just witnessed. As Katy's show was loud, weird, and specifically tailored to the internet's tendency to latch on to viral moments and turn them into memes, that's exactly what her performance became. It was one giant meme as she performed on a lion statue wearing this really weird flame outfit, but in terms of the actual musical performances, Katy's performance was meh, and the real star of the night actually became Missy Elliott, who strutted out in a surprise appearance and blew the crowd away. She didn't just even steal the spotlight, she commandeered it. And coming in number 1 today, we have Shakira. After Shakira teamed up with J-Lo to do the halftime show in 2020, the FCC would receive over 1,000 complaints from viewers who had something to say about their performance, as the singers felt like it was appropriate to dance on poles, twerk, and belly dance and make suggestive gestures, with most of the complaints coming from parents who felt like their children were exposed to X-rated content. Other adults thought that their show encouraged people to work in the wrong careers, and some people were just generally upset that there was no public warnings given before the show about how suggestive their performances would be. One viewer would even point out that the pair's show was less of a musical act and it turned more into an X-rated performance. While the general performance was amazing musically, I can see why people were so upset over the matter, as when Janet Jackson did a similar performance, she would find herself being shunned, while these two ladies found themselves being praised for their risky behavior.
Number 10, MIA. It's pretty common knowledge that the primary viewers of the Super Bowl are composed of conservative America. Basically, this means you don't really want to be a problem as a performer at the show. Well, MIA, the singer known for her songs like Paper Planes and Bad Girls, appeared alongside Nicki Minaj and Madonna, who was the headliner for the show. It was going pretty alright, despite Madonna's pretty lackluster dancing, until a problem arose when MIA decided she was gonna flash a big old middle finger to the whole of football-loving conservative America. Now, the behavior isn't that shocking for the artist, and honestly, you'd miss the moment if you blinked, but conservative America was left feeling completely flabbergasted and outraged, and so was the NFL. The league responded by filing a lawsuit suing the rapper for millions of dollars in damages and demanding a public apology. If anything, this probably actually boosted the rapper's image. Number 9, Janet Jackson. In 2004, Janet Jackson took to the Super Bowl stage with Justin Timberlake joining her about halfway through the performance to perform Rock Your Body. It was a decent performance with a big bold finish that saw Timberlake out of literally nowhere rip one of Jackson's bra cups off, showing off half of the singer's bare chest. Supposedly, it was meant to be that Timberlake tore the rubber top off to reveal a red lace bra, which clearly was not the case, and he just ripped it all off for the world to see. The NFL was on it pretty quick, cutting the cameras as fast as possible, but the damage was done. About 540,000 complaints came in from viewers of the show, as if the NFL didn't notice this mess up. Jackson apologized for what became known as a wardrobe malfunction, and apologies from Timberlake poured out, followed by an interview with Oprah from Jackson. Nipplegate caused conspiracies as people theorized the whole thing was purposely staged to happen. I kinda doubt it. Luckily, no one really blamed Timberlake, even though he totally did it, but it kind of capsized Jackson's career. Number 8, Justin Timberlake, but for real this time. In 2018, Timberlake decided that he would make a video projection hologram of Prince as an homage to the late artist, a part of his show, despite the fact that the guy had literally promised that he would not do that. Timberlake sang "I Would Die For You" along with the video that also used a part of Prince's music video for Purple Rain. Fans of Prince specifically were were outraged as they said this disrespected the artist. In a 1998 Guitar World interview, Prince specifically spoke about his dislike of using holograms for this exact reason. If you're gonna honor a guy, the best way you could do it is by not doing the thing that he doesn't like, but you did, which was stupid. Number 7. Maroon 5. Following the controversy surrounding Colin Kaepernick taking the knee for the national anthem and subsequently not getting signed for any NFL team, many musical artists decided to sit out the Super Bowl halftime show in 2019 in support of the player who was 100% in the right for his choice. However, Maroon 5 decided to be completely tone deaf and decided to take the stage out the 2019 Super Bowl halftime show. They got in deep water for this choice, with critics believing all major artists should have boycotted the halftime show to support Kaepernick and punish any company that silenced protests, which is the right of any American. In response to the controversy, the band decided to give $500,000 to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America, which is nice, but doesn't really have anything to do with the issue that was at hand. It painted a bad picture of the band members and hung over their heads for a long time. Number 6. Elvis Presto. This may as well just be a guy shooting his career in the foot. Before the time of Michael Jackson's crazy successful halftime show and its subsequent focus on pop stars, the main acts of the halftime shows varied wildly from year to year. As an example, in 1989, the halftime show was centered around a magic trick performing Elvis impersonator who called himself Elvis Presto. Elvis Presto, with 4 backup singers, performed a card trick where the audience was asked to pick from 4 cards based on how loud their applause was. There was no applause. It was just the absolute most boring and horrible halftime show that I can only imagine Elvis Presto just wasn't heard from for a hot minute afterwards. Number 5. Fergie. Speaking of the end of a career, in 2011 Fergie alongside the Black Eyed Peas were leading the Super Bowl halftime show with their special guest, Slash. Yes, Slash from Guns N' Roses. Going from their signature dance music to straight up classic rock was an interesting change of pace, but it got quite a bit worse when Fergie belted out Sweet Child of Mine alongside the guitarist, giving it what I'm sure was her best shot. But it just didn't go that well. It was not a sweet child, it was a child with a temper tantrum. Fans of the band almost universally revolted for the horrible rendition, and it was just not a good time. Not too long after this, Fergie took to the NBA floor to sing the national anthem, and while it was good for the first bit, it just kinda went off the rails towards the end, and unfortunately these 2 performances just didn't help her career, and she hasn't really recovered since. Number 4. Christina Aguilera. Singing the national anthem in front of a worldwide audience of well over 100 million people is not easy, as proven by Christina Aguilera, who really should be able to keep it together. This was actually before the kickoff of the Super Bowl. Aguilera's voice boomed through the stadium, and it was amazing, as it usually is, but she made the mistake of singing the wrong words at the wrong time. The star confused Over the Ramparts We Watched were so gallantly streaming with What So Proudly We Watched at the Twilight's Last Gleaming. Aguilera later complained that she lost her place during the song, but no matter the reason, it was still one of the worst national anthem performances ever, which for the conservative watchers of the bowl is just not okay. Number 3. The Rock. Not a halftime show moment, and also not really a cancellation, but it was just weird. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was brought in to hype up the Los Angeles crowd just before the Rams and the Bengals kicked off the Super Bowl 56. He brought his usual showmanship to the field and delivered a very intense speech to the crowd, but NFL fans and Super Bowl viewers still found the monologue kinda strange. Members of the Bengals and the Rams obviously did as well. The NFL captured mic'd up footage of the Bengals and Rams reacting to The Rock's monologue, with Joe Burrow's quote probably best summing it all up when he said, quote, "What is he doing out there?" And then, on top of that, Zach Taylor was spotted cracking up at Johnson, while Aaron Donald was told, quote, "That's going to be you in 10 years, your acting career." I thought his speech was fine, but for some reason, seemingly the whole stadium turned on him that day. Poor guy. Number 2. Kanye West. No, he never performed at the halftime show for the Super Bowl, but that's not what we're talking about. Kanye is not new to being cancelled, but in 2022 he attended the Super Bowl a few hours after the artist and designer shared several posts targeting his ex-wife Kim Kardashian and her new boyfriend Pete Davidson, and this was only shortly after the rapper dissed the comedian in a song. When he showed up at the Super Bowl, the artist made the bold choice of wearing what looks like a black sack over his head, with some people just assuming that he was hiding after his interactions with Pete and Kim. But everyone knew who he was, obviously, and when he was shown on the Jumbotron with his kids sitting next to him, the crowd at the game let them know that they were not fans of his as they booed and roared out all over. This didn't get him cancelled, but his actions from this point and going forward have just caused the artist to be universally cancelled ever since.
Coming in at number 10 we have Janet Jackson. The infamous wardrobe malfunction that shook the entertainment world happened on stage during the 2004 Super Bowl halftime show to none other than Janet Jackson. No one could forget when Janet and Justin Timberlake performed Rock Your Body, and as Justin reached the final note he pulled off a piece of Janet's costume, which was essentially her bra cup, and flashed an estimated 143 million viewers. According to Janet's publicist, the moment was only meant to reveal her red bra underneath, but a wardrobe malfunction resulted in the entire thing coming off. Viewers were shocked and Janet's career spiraled, and an immediate scandal ensued. Since then, the incident has inspired numerous performances, songs, and TV episodes. In fact, last year, FX and Hulu released a documentary called Malfunction, the dressing down of Janet Jackson, which aimed to explore the racial and cultural currents that collided on the Super Bowl stage. Interestingly enough, the stylist who was behind Janet's Super Bowl look, Wayne Scott Lucas, told Page Six that Justin was actually behind it all because he wanted to upstage Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and Madonna, who kissed at the 2003 MTV Video Music Awards a few months earlier. Number 9, Adam Levine. The Maroon 5 frontman was heavily criticized for his performance at the 2019 Super Bowl halftime show. It was a highly controversial year, as the NFL came under fire for their treatment of Colin Kaepernick, the former 49ers quarterback who was blackballed for kneeling in protest of police brutality. Artists like Rihanna and Cardi B all declined to perform in support of him. But Adam Levine took the job, despite the fact that 100,000 Maroon 5 fans signed a petition urging the band to drop out. In the end, it was a disaster. Not only was his performance considered to be super boring, but viewers were also upset with his lack of clothing. The singer's shirtless chest was front and center during the show, and this angered a lot of fans who compared it to Janet Jackson's infamous Nipplegate and the double standard there. Adam ripped off his shirt shortly into Maroon 5's set, exposing his tattoo-covered chest and of course his nipples. This move left viewers outraged, and people were quick to point out how hypocritical his shirtless performance was after Janet faced severe backlash and punishment for the same thing. Number 8, the Black Eyed Peas. Booking the band for 2011's Super Bowl halftime show might have seemed like a great idea in theory, considering their reputation as a high-energy pop group with nationwide mainstream popularity and a boatload of hits. Unfortunately, several fundamental issues became immediately clear when they started performing. The Peas were surrounded by dancers flailing around in light-up morph suits, and they also wore the same thing. They did their version of "I've had the time of my life," and the whole time Usher looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. Aside from the horrible costumes, the performance confirmed the long-running rumors about the group's inability to perform live. They revealed themselves to be a woefully inadequate live act for a halftime show, particularly considering that most of the singing was handled by Fergie, who certainly isn't known to be the strongest live vocalist. In fact, sports fans were reminded of this during her misguided performance of the national anthem at the NBA's 2018 All-Star Game. Number 7, Katy Perry. The singer was once the most successful pop artist in the early 2010s, almost as soon as her tunes hit the airwaves, but it seems like her career really started to take a turn in the middle of the decade, and her controversial Super Bowl performance didn't help her cause at all. Katy performed many of her most popular songs, but people got hung up on the cheesy set pieces like the giant dancing sharks. In fact, this is what turned her show into a literal meme. At the end of her rendition of Teenage Dream, right before the transition into California Girls, disaster struck. But it wasn't really Katy's fault, it actually had everything to do with a mistake made by one of her backup dancers, who was wearing one of the shark costumes. The dancer on the left appeared to forget the choreography during the song, and the slip-up went viral. At the beginning of the song, the two sharks were dancing lockstep with one another, but as the number went on, the left shark appeared to increasingly lose track of where he was in the dance. In an effort to get back on track, he was flailing around, which was hilarious. The show remains the most viewed halftime show in the game's history, so people were entranced by the performance, both in a positive and in a negative way. Number 6, Justin Timberlake. The singer gave a jumbled and downright messy performance at his Super Bowl halftime show in 2018. It seemed like everything was going wrong, and of course his choice of wardrobe was questionable. Justin was decked out in a camo suit with clashing prints, complete with an orange bandana. The set
set was also plagued by some strange sound mixing and editing, and in the first segment of the performance, his vocals were getting drowned out by the instrumentation. Many people thought he would reunite NSYNC or bring out Janet Jackson, but instead he performed with a projection of the late singer Prince and sang a medley of his old hits. After the performance, critics immediately weighed in on the show, with the reviews ranging from mediocre to absolute disgust. Forbes' Brian Rowley wrote, "Justin Timberlake's Super Bowl halftime show performance should have afforded him the opportunity to remind the world why he has remained a pop cultural juggernaut for 2 decades. Instead, the singer delivered a lifeless, by-numbers performance that largely eschewed his new album in favor of his widely beloved back catalog." Now that review was pretty harsh, but it's actually in line with what a lot of people thought. Number 5, Shakira and J-Lo. The 2020 Super Bowl halftime show was interesting to say the least, and it was a big night considering that 2 musical icons were sharing the stage. But it turns out that J-Lo wasn't a big fan of giving up the spotlight. In her recently released documentary called Halftime, she labeled it as the worst idea in the world. She said, "If it was going to be a double headliner, they should have given us 20 minutes. That's what they should have effing done." Basically, it turns out that Jennifer was frustrated with the NFL for booking 2 headliners and making them share the same amount of time that any solo performer would receive, as opposed to doubling it and giving the women extra time to shine. As a result, fans slammed the artist for coming off as entitled. While it's true that they only gave the performers 6 minutes each, the action-packed show garnered immense praise from fans across the globe, with many fans commending the women for showcasing their Latin heritage so brilliantly. What J-Lo was really mad about though is that previous solo headliners like Beyonce and The Weeknd received 14 minutes to perform, but judging by her complaints, it's clear that she feels so offended that they asked her to share the stage at all. Number 4, Phil Collins. The Disney-produced Stadium Spectacular was well-meaning, but it was very confusing. Over 2 minutes was wasted with overblown orchestral parts and matching puppets. Christina Aguilera and Enrique Iglesias performed well, but then Phil Collins turned up and looked and sounded badly out of place. Most people thought it was a terrible decision not to let them sing any of their own hits. This very 2000s wild spectacle of a performance is an example of everything that was wrong with the way the Super Bowl used to do its mid-game performances. The Disney production was intended to be a dazzling spectacle of global unity, but in the end it turned out to be an incomprehensible mess. The show was criticized for having ugly set pieces, dancers in vague costumes that were supposed to represent different countries around the globe, and singers like Phil Collins singing original songs especially written for the show, so basically no one could even sing along with them. But the most bizarre part of the show came when actor Edward James Olmos delivered a deadly serious narration to the camera, saying things like, "Go now and celebrate your dreams as the magic of the millennium continues to bring us together." Number 3, Elvis Presto. The 1989 Super Bowl halftime show for the game between the Cincinnati Bengals and San Francisco 49ers ended up being one of the most unusual halftime show performances of all time. NBC debuted a 3D TV presentation for the show that was headlined by an Elvis impersonator called Elvis Presto, and it was a whole mess. The show featured the world's largest card trick, where 4 playing cards were on the field. During the show, Elvis Presto asked the audience to pick from 4 cards by clapping their hands. Hilariously, next to no one in the audience clapped, and the several cutaways to the genuinely disinterested crowd helped cement this halftime show as a dark chapter of American history. According to an NFL Films documentary, Alex Cole, the man who portrayed Presto, got the job 3 days before the game after the previous actor quit the show to do a Lee Jeans commercial. Cole said that he didn't perform again on stage after that Super Bowl. In fact, the NFL is so embarrassed by the Elvis Presto disaster, they've blocked sharing YouTube videos of the event onto other websites. Number 2, New Kids on the Block. The Boston-based group was one of the many fresh-faced bands to burst into the pop culture scene at the turn of the decade. They were rewarded for their popularity with a spot at the Super Bowl 25 halftime show, but this turned out to be a horrible idea, mainly because the group was forced to perform their incredibly juvenile hit song called This One's for the Children, which does the opposite of setting the mood for the big game. Disney handled production, and the New Kids on the Block were surrounded by giant cartoon characters. To make matters worse, the song then segued into a Disney kiddie choir. This performance went down as one of the worst halftime shows of all time. In fact, it wasn't even aired until after the game, because ABC used the halftime slot to give a news update on Operation Desert Storm in the Persian Gulf. So if anything, that should tell you all you need to know about how this performance turned out. And coming in at number 1, Disney's Indiana Jones. The 1995 performance performance will forever live in infamy as one of the worst things the NFL has ever seen. This show is perhaps one of the most criticized in all of Super Bowl history, and it's for a good reason. At the time, Disney decided it would be a great idea to whip up a shameless marketing gimmick with Indiana Jones songs, all to promote a new theme park ride. The show was just a spectacle of sets and characters from the film series, but it was a complete disaster. This included impersonators for Indy and Marion, which did not exactly work out well. If that wasn't enough, someone thought it would be a good idea to bring up Patti LaBelle, Tony Bennett, and Teddy Pendergrass after the spectacle to sing Can You Feel the Love Tonight. In a year of high-profile disasters, this one was way up there. To be fair, TV viewers all across America were warned when the announcer said in the beginning of the show, "Hold on, I've got a bad feeling about this."
In at number 10, Adele. Adele shaded the NFL in 2016 when she revealed that she rejected their offer to perform at the 2017 halftime show. In August of 2016, Adele took the opportunity during her show at Las Vegas' Staples Center to set the record straight about if she would be the star of the next year's halftime. And she said it was a hard pass. She said, quote, "First of all, I'm not doing the Super Bowl. I mean, come on, that show is not about music. And I can't dance or anything like that. They were very kind, they did ask me, but I did say no." And from that standpoint, I get what she's saying. Adele is known for her iconic ballads, not the insane shows that are generally put on at the Super Bowl. This was not the end though. The NFL came back with their own shady dig, claiming that they never actually offered her the halftime show in the first place. Clearly someone is lying, but either way, that relationship is torn. In at number 9, Jay-Z. Jay-Z is another star who turned down the chance to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show, and he revealed the reason why in a song. In the song Ape Shit, that was made in collaboration with his wife Beyonce, he rapped, quote, "I said no to the Super Bowl. You need me, I don't need you. Every night we're in the end zone, tell the NFL we're in stadiums too." He also took the time to call out the Grammys as well, as he feels he has not been respected by that organization. The source reported that Jay said no to the 2018 halftime show, which Justin Timberlake ended up doing. But it's clear he's not done with the organization altogether. In 2019, Jay-Z's company, Roc Nation, made a deal to team up with the NFL for a multi-year partnership intended to, quote, "enhance the NFL's live game experiences and to amplify the league's social justice efforts." This role means that Jay-Z plays a role in selecting who performs at the halftime shows in the future. In at number 8, Rihanna. Rihanna passed up the Super Bowl show in 2019 because she wanted to stand in solidarity with San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick's "Take a Knee" movement. Rihanna commented directly on her reasoning for not taking part, telling Vogue, quote, "I couldn't dare do that. For what? Who gains from that? Not my people. I just couldn't be a sellout, I couldn't be an enabler. There's things within that organization that I do not agree with at all, and I wasn't going to go out and be of service to them in any way." Rihanna usually doesn't comment on things like this, but it's clear she wanted everyone to know the reason that she did not want to perform was because of the NFL. That year, the organization struggled to book a performer, and in the end, Maroon 5 and Travis Scott agreed. In at number 7, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. In 2014, Bruno Mars ran the halftime show and decided to bring out the Red Hot Chili Peppers as one of his guests. The band and Mars performed Give It Away, and everyone loved it. However, during the performance, fans on TV realized that the bass and guitars were not plugged in, making it clear it was not actually a live performance. The band started to get tons of backlash, and people were angry that they didn't play live as they had claimed they would. The bassist later made a statement which revealed, quote, "When we were asked by the NFL and Bruno to play our song, Give It Away at the Super Bowl, it was made clear to us that the vocals would be live, but the bass, drums, and guitar would all be pre-recorded." The band's guitarist also doubled down, revealing that every band in the last 10 years has also performed to a recorded track, because there's way too much room for error with a real live performance. I'm sure the NFL did not like that the band revealed a coveted secret like that, and since that revelation, fans have looked down on the legitimacy of the performances. In at number 6, MIA. MIA made a huge mistake while performing with Madonna at the 2012 Super Bowl that not only cost her career, but forced her to pay up a massive lawsuit. During Madonna's halftime slot at the 2012 Super Bowl, she brought out her collaborators on the song Give Me All Your Lovin', MIA and Nicki Minaj. But the great night came to a crashing halt after MIA flipped the bird at the end of the performance, and millions of viewers at home saw. The league was so outraged by the decision that they decided to sue MIA for $16 million. The suit was settled between parties for an undisclosed amount. She claimed the finger was a, quote, "display of female empowerment through being punk rock." Madonna later commented that she had no idea it even happened until much later, and she was really surprised to learn that it happened.
In the end, MIA is clearly never allowed back, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was never allowed to perform anywhere. Halfway number 5, Fergie. Fergie is known for making all of her performances original, but many didn't expect that to be the case when she's singing songs like the national anthem. Fergie made us all cringe when she tried out a new rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner, and we all just wanted to make it stop. But that was not the first time a cover of hers went wrong. In 2011, Fergie and the Black Eyed Peas hosted the Super Bowl halftime show, and they brought out special guest Slash during a performance. In between performing Black Eyed Peas songs, Fergie and Slash performed a rendition of Sweet Child of Mine that had fans in uproar. As we know, Fergie likes to put her own spin on classic songs, but this one was not received well. It was the third song in an 8-song set list, which Rolling Stone described as the worst Super Bowl halftime show of all time. So I would assume the fans do not want her back. And at number 4, themed halftime shows. Back in 1995, the NFL decided to change up the halftime show in a big way. Instead of having a celebrity performer like usual, they worked with Disney to create an Indiana Jones themed show. In 1995, Disney unveiled its Indiana Jones Adventure Temple of the Forbidden Eye ride, and they felt the best place to promote this new ride was at the 1995 Super Bowl halftime show. Disney came on board as the producer of the NFL's chief spectacle, and it was pretty goddamn strange. The 11-minute show was somewhat of a musical theater performance. First we see Patti LaBelle lip-syncing to a random song. Then Indiana Jones and Marion Ravenwood show up via parachute and have to fight their way through a horde of ninjas. Then they grab the Vince Lombardi trophy and run away. Then the performers sing "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?", which felt like a strange choice. Thankfully there was no mishaps during the performance, but we're glad something like that did not ever happen again. And at number 3, Eminem. Eminem performed with 4 other artists during last weekend's Super Bowl show. The show featured performances from iconic hip-hop artists including Eminem, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, and Mary J. Blige. In the middle of the show, while Dr. Dre was playing a piano, Eminem took a knee and put his hand over his head. Many took this as a sign of Eminem's support of Colin Kaepernick's Take a Knee initiative. This is even more controversial because it was reported that the performers were banned from taking a knee during the show, and anti-police language was taken out of many of the songs during the show. Eric Gardner reported on Sunday, quote, "The league nixed a plan by Eminem to kneel, Colin Kaepernick style." Eminem has not clarified his intention since the buzz started, but I think it's clear what he was doing, and because he defied the NFL's rules, he will not be asked back to perform. And at number 2, Jennifer Lopez. After J-Lo and Shakira joined forces during the 2020 Super Bowl, J-Lo admitted they included a political message in the performance. During the set, J-Lo's daughter Emmy sang a few lines of Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, with Let's Get Loud. Then at the same time, kids look to appear in small cages on the field behind a large fence. Some viewers noticed the kids in cages as an apparent reference to President Donald Trump's immigration policy of separating families at the US-Mexico border. After the show, J-Lo confirmed that was the intention, and the whole thing was planned to send a message to the government. She said, quote, "All I want my girls, the little girls on stage with me and all over the world to know is how to use their voices and be proud of everything they are. Other people can try to build walls, keep us out, or put us in cages. We are proud to recognize that all of us together are what makes this beautiful country truly great." And finally, number 1, Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus is a celebrity who's gone through a massive transformation in her years since becoming a celebrity. She used to be known as the innocent Hannah Montana on the Disney Channel, but as soon as she left Disney, she became Hollywood's wild child, because she's known for doing the unthinkable, like twerking on Robin Thicke at the VMAs. Because of all this, she is banned from performing in the Dominican Republic. According to the AP, government officials deem that Miley, quote, "undertakes acts that go against morals and customs which are punishable by Dominican law, and thus she cannot perform in their country." And I'm sure the Dominican Republic is not the only country that feels this way, and does not want performances by Miley in their country. Because she's so unpredictable and not family friendly, I would assume she will not be asked to perform at the halftime show. And at number 10, Kanye West's mask. We all know that Kanye loves to stand out, and that was no different at Sunday's Super Bowl. Kanye showed up to the game with his 2 kids, Saint and North, and he decided to wear a black mask that covered his entire face. The only ventilation in the mask were multiple tiny black holes made around his eyes. During the game, he was also posting constantly to Instagram, mostly taking aim at Kim Kardashian and her new boyfriend Pete Davidson. Comedian and director Judd Apatow even gave the inside scoop on Kanye's feelings about the outfit, and apparently Kanye regretted the choice. Apatow heard Kanye and a friend talking about the ridiculous mask. Apatow's caption said, quote, "I'm sitting near Kanye. He seems very hot and sweaty in the mask. I overheard him say, 'Man, I wish I didn't go with the mask today, but now that I'm in, I can't really bail on it.'" Kanye then asked a friend if he could lose the mask at halftime, but the friend said he just has to commit to the decision now. Kanye apparently added, quote, "I wish we would have cut some more vents in this thing." And at number 9, Doja Cat. This one isn't that embarrassing, but Doja Cat had some fans scratching their heads when she appeared on the Jumbotron at the Super Bowl. She was seated next to The Weeknd, and when the camera panned to the group, she decided to meme the situation in usual fashion. When the camera appeared, everyone smiled and looked towards it, other than Doja, who looked at the camera like she was afraid or something, clearly memeing the situation. Then when another camera showed a different angle, we could see her slowly raising her thumbs. She was not the only one who had a questionable appearance on the Jumbotron though. After a few more stars were shown, the camera panned to see Shaq, who did some really uncomfortable tongue movements before the camera then panned away. And at number 8, Janet Jackson. Janet Jackson is easily the celebrity with the worst track record relating to the Super Bowl, and it's no question that she's had the most embarrassing experience. In 2004, she had the honor of leading the halftime performance, but she made the mistake of inviting Justin Timberlake to perform with her. This incident was so bad, it coined the term wardrobe malfunction. While her and Timberlake were performing the song Rock Your Body, Justin reached over and ripped her shirt, exposing her bare breasts to everyone watching live. Over 540,000 complaints were filed after the incident, and CBS was even fined for allowing it to appear on TV. Following the mishap, Jackson was banned from attending the Grammys that year, and all the world could talk about was Janet Jackson, even though Timberlake completely caused the malfunction. Watching the performance back, it's clear that moment was staged. We're just not sure where exactly it went wrong. It was rumored that he was just supposed to pull back the top part and expose a red lace bra that she was wearing underneath, but obviously he ripped off too much. Jackson's career has never really recovered following the event. And at number 7, Katy Perry. Thankfully, Katy Perry did not embarrass herself by doing anything wrong, but her halftime show is not remembered for how entertaining or groundbreaking that it was, rather it's remembered because of the embarrassing left shark. Katy Perry headlined the halftime show in 2015 and put on a bright and colorful performance, as expected. When the show ended, all anyone could talk about was Perry's backup dancer, who became memed as the left shark. During the performance, Perry had 2 giant sharks behind her dancing while she sang Teenage Dream, but the left one caught everyone's attention because the shark was off cue the whole time and looked to be falling behind. That year, the shark became one of the year's top Halloween costumes. After this performance, everyone wanted to know the full story behind Left Shark, so the dancer inside the costume, Brian Goss, shared his side. He'd been dancing with Perry for 5 years beforehand, and he said that he felt the performance was up to interpretation, so he decided to play a different sort of character as the goofy shark who did not know what he was doing, and clearly he played that role perfectly. And at number 6, Coldplay. This group's halftime show was so monumental and iconic that people still talk about it to this day. But the embarrassing part is that nobody gives Coldplay any credit for their own show. It's hard not to love Coldplay, but sadly their Super Bowl halftime show was a little cringy, mostly because the band was upstaged by their surprise guests, Beyonce and Bruno Mars. I assume most of you didn't even know that Beyonce's legendary Super Bowl performance in 2016 was not actually her show, it was Coldplay's show. She just guest starred, and completely overshadowed the band during their own show. Considering many people don't remember anything about Coldplay's performance, it's clear they took the back seat. During the show, Chris Martin's performance looked more like a third wheel, not someone who was actually supposed to be there. Halfway at number 5, Christina Aguilera. Back in 2011, Christina Aguilera was responsible for a huge blunder when she sang the wrong lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner. Everyone knows that the national anthem is sang at the beginning of all sporting events, and the countries representing both sides are sang before the game starts. At the Super Bowl, this anthem is the American national anthem, and even though everyone thinks they know the national anthem, they probably didn't know it as well as they think and are used to just mouthing along to it. So when Christina Aguilera messed it up, it was a big deal. Aguilera's powerful voice boomed throughout the stadium as expected, but she made the mistake of singing the wrong words at the wrong time. The pop star confused "Oh, the ramparts we watch, we are so gallantly streaming" with "What so proudly we watch at the twilight's last gleaming." After the mishap, Aguilera addressed the blunder and said that she simply just lost her place. And at number 4, 50 Cent. During the 2022 halftime show, 50 Cent came out as a special guest performer. He sang his hit song In the Club in the middle of the landmark show. But the part of his performance that got everyone talking was when he hung upside down while singing a part of the song, in a bizarre and uncomfortable looking decision. This move was a reference to the music video for the song, where 50 can be seen doing upside down crutches. Since this stunt started with him upside down, the set was instantly memed, with fans assuming that 50 was hanging upside down for quite a while he waited for Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre to finish up their song. Like this tweet that read, 50 Cent waiting for his part the whole time, #halftime show. And at number 3, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson opened the Super Bowl with an energetic speech to rile up the players and viewers for the big event about to take place. The nearly 2-minute speech was electric, but during it, fans could not help but notice that his fly might have been down during it. While speaking, he was wearing maroon pants, and you could faintly see white material peeking through his fly, almost like his underwear was just barely showing. Many online called it the 2022 Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction. His clothing choice had already drawn comments before people's eyes were drawn to his crotch though. He was wearing a clashing all-purple ensemble that looked like it had shrunk in the wash and was about to rip every time he started yelling. And at number 2, Kanye's Super Bowl commercial. Kanye West was not only ranting about his ex-wife during the Super Bowl, he also starred in one of the commercials for McDonald's. And I'm sure the PR team for McDonald's was not happy with how the day turned out. The commercial started with people driving up to the window to order and having no idea what they wanted, which prompted them to do the classic, as they figured out what they wanted. The commercial shows countless people thinking about what to order, then at the end of the commercial, Kanye rolls up in a huge military-style tank and says, "Hey, can I get a..." until the commercial ends. Ye, who was actually at the Super Bowl with his kids that night, has proclaimed his love for McDonald's in the past. In 2018, he tweeted, quote, "McDonald's is my favorite restaurant." The commercial itself is pretty funny, but the fact that the McDonald's PR team was most likely in disarray was hilarious. And finally, number 1, Mickey Guyton. At this year's Super Bowl, there was an awkward mix-up that was not only embarrassing for the NFL, but also for the performers. Singer Mickey Guyton, who sang the national anthem, was incorrectly labeled as Jhené Aiko while she was up singing. In their defense, Jhené Aiko was singing at the event alongside Guyton, however Aiko sang America the Beautiful at a different time. At the time of the mix-up, both women were standing on the field of SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Immediately, NBC Sports released an apology on Twitter, which read, quote, "We incorrectly showed Mickey Guyton and misidentified her before showing Aiko's performance. We apologize to both artists for the error."
First off, we have Travis Kelce screaming at his coach. Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce didn't mean anything by his shouting at head coach Andy Reid early on Sunday's Super Bowl. It was all part of the star's competitive spirit, a source tells Page 6. Kelce was clearly irritated and frustrated after the Chiefs lost a fumble in the second quarter of their thrilling comeback overtime win over San Francisco. The 34-year-old star and boyfriend to Taylor Swift was seen on video yelling in Reid's face and even bumping the coach as he wanted back into the game following the turnover. Teammate Jerick McKinnon even had to hold Travis back. Viewers were quick to pounce on Kelce's actions, but a source brushed aside any real animosity between the player and the coach. Quote, "He's just a passionate player and everybody is on edge. It's the Super Bowl, but there was no malintent." Next up, we have Usher's halftime show. Viewers look forward to the halftime show each year, but this year's performance fell flat. Usher's halftime performance during this year's Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco 49ers has come under fire from thousands across the globe. As the players took a well-deserved break in the Allegiant Stadium locker rooms, Usher took to the field to belt out a long list of his best-known hits. While the thousands in attendance were on their feet, it's safe to say the performance fell a bit flat, with several watching at home. Complaints flooded in from the very beginning of the performance, with many moaning that the sound quality was, quote, "awful," and that Alicia Keys' singing was off-pitch, and that there was no wow moment from any of the performers. Taking issue with the sound quality, one ex-user fumed, "Usher is horrible in live settings. I could barely hear him on top of that. Worst halftime show in a long time. Worst halftime show ever. Didn't even hear Usher sing properly. Really disappointed," a second user said. A third echoed, "This is historically bad. Congrats, Usher." Every year the halftime show is worse and worse. Hashtag Super Bowl. This didn't break the internet, a fourth user hit out, while a fifth bluntly put, quote, "the worst Super Bowl halftime show performance ever." Even those who enjoyed Usher's performance couldn't help but criticize the audio problems that plagued it, including one person who weighed in saying it was a great show but audio was awful. Got a little better towards the end, but you could barely hear Usher at all. A second diplomatic viewer concurred, "Seen better and seen worse halftime shows. There to me was no wow moment. Disappointing on the sound quality from most of it, but it got better when Usher went to a mic."